start here. The Democratic Alliance wants the FBI to dig into money laundering claims against South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. This relates to the 2020 burglary at his Ramaphosa Farm, during which former spy boss Arthur Fraser says burglars made off with $4 million. The president says he will allow investigations to conclude before commenting anymore, but he has said it was nowhere near that amount. Today, the DA held a briefing laying out 9 steps that they are taking. DA leader John Steenhuisen joins me now. And thank you very much for your time this evening. So, John Steenhuisen, have you had any response from the FBI's yet?
No, Sally. The letter only went off yesterday morning to them. We'll obviously wait for the response from them. But it relates to the use of United States dollars in transactions that have crossed borders. And we want to enlist the help of the FBI in tracking down where those dollars came from and how they ended up in South Africa. Given the fact that it's a US currency and given the fact that that currency has crossed borders between certainly South Africa and Namibia, and who knows where it came from originally, I think it is important that we try and get as many agencies as possible involved in trying to get to the bottom of these dollars.
So the presidency has said they haven't confirmed if it was dollars or South African rands. What are you using as your points of information that it was indeed US dollars?
Well, the fact that the information, the allegations was that it was dollars, the fact that the suspects, who are now no longer under dispute, used dollars to purchase vehicles, properties, dental equipment, and a whole variety of other consumable goods using dollars. And the fact that the Namibian authorities uncovered dollars when they apprehended the suspects in Namibia. So it's very clear that the suspects were running around with large amounts of US currency, which would not have been readily or easily available to them in the ordinary course of business in South Africa. And so it is highly likely and incredibly unlikely that it was not dollars that were stolen from that particular farm.
What do you expect the FBI to do that local authorities won't? Because surely their first port of call is to communicate with the South African authorities about what information they have on this theft.
Well, I mean, they can communicate quite easily with them. The fact is that this robbery took place 2 years ago, and we're no closer to knowing what the SAPS have done or not done in relation to this. The president has said it wasn't nearly that amount. I'm surprised that 2 years later he can't tell us what the exact amount was then of dollars or amount stolen, how much was recovered. And I think that these questions need to be answered. We've also noticed is that the president has no faith in the SAPS. If he had faith in the SAPS to get to the bottom of the situation, he would have reported it to the SAPS and got a case number, exactly like him and his police minister encourage ordinary citizens of the Republic to do every single time they talk about crime in the country. And he would have then, made an announcement that the police had investigated. But it now looks increasingly likely that there was no case number, that this was not reported to an SAPS police station, and that there was no proper investigation, despite the fact that there's now allegations that the former police commissioner and the current police commissioner were aware of the robbery that had taken place.
I noticed that Iqbal Sharma of Independent Media is calling for President Ramaphosa's bank accounts to be frozen. Do you think they should?
Well, it's the same answer I had for the question I got earlier today about whether the president should step aside. It all depends what his side of the story is. And I'm increasingly frustrated by the fact that he won't take South Africa citizens, parliament, the media, and civil society into his confidence about this. It's very difficult to make an assessment whether somebody's bank accounts should be frozen or whether somebody should step aside in the absence of their side of the story. And the thing that really frustrates me in all this is the president could bring this to a very swift and decisive end were he just to make a full disclosure about how he got the money, what it was doing there, what mechanisms were made to recover it, why the suspects were never formally charged, why they received money, and the like. I think that if he came out and clarified all of these things, you, me, and society can make up our mind about whether further action needs to be taken.
And in the
silence doesn't help
Yeah, in the face of that silence, you've also asked the Financial Intelligence Centre to look into matters. You've asked for SARS, the tax authority, to probe. You've also asked the Secretary of the Cabinet in the Office of the President to have a look at the President's declaration of financial interests. I'm wondering why that's not publicly available anyway. And tell me a little bit more about what the rules say for the President and the Cabinet about having a side hustle. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed?
So the Constitution says in Section 96, 1, A, B, and C, that that members of the Cabinet should not be involved in any other paid work that would accrue to them. And secondly, that if there is business interest, that these should not constitute a conflict of interest between the official duties and the private interests. And that's where the problem comes in here for the President, because certainly the information that's come to light is that the President's VIP protection unit, which is paid for by you, me, and every other citizen in the country, was used to follow up and track down the private business dollars and cash obtained by the President from his private business. That would, to my mind, be a clear abuse of power that would need to be investigated. The Executive Ethics Act says that any business activity or interest needs to be declared in the register to the Secretary to Cabinet, and that the record must be kept. One of the action steps of the 9 action steps we've taken today is to ask to have sight of that. I would like to go and see for myself whether Pala and this money had been declared there.
Got 2 very quick questions for you. It's a bizarre echo of the Nkandla story, but you've asked the Minister of Public Works to look into who paid for security upgrades at Pala. Any answers?
Well, none yet, but I mean, it definitely is back to the future. We've got Parliament disrupted again. We've got MPs being chucked out of Parliament. We've got presiding officers preventing MPs from asking tough questions. It's almost like we're back in the Nkandla paradigm again, and a president who's clearly not being forthcoming about what the real situation on the ground is. I'm sure you remember the FNB bond that we were told existed over the Nkandla property, and that turned out to be a fabrication, and that you and I and other taxpayers had paid for it. So we haven't
again all these questions.
Yet, we will get the answers.
Okay, I have to ask you this last question, which you could give me an answer. You in March called for a vote of no confidence in the President's Cabinet, but not in the President himself, because you said he'd made some strides to trying to sort out corruption. If you were to call for that no confidence vote again, would you want the President included?
Again, hard to say without his side of the story. There may be a plausible explanation for all of this, Sally, and certainly if the President was innocent, as he seems to protest, it should be no problem putting that before us. If he doesn't, and if it does turn out that he's broken the law, if he has abused power, if he's failed to declare, and if he has been involved in money laundering or any of the other nefarious activities or a cover-up of a crime, that he would then have broken his oath of office to uphold the Constitution and all other law of the Republic. And he would most certainly then qualify to be included in such a motion. I think that once the information is out, we as Parliament would need to make a decision about whether we move for impeachment inquiries or motions of no confidence. But I would like the President to come clean to the nation and give him the benefit of the doubt before we start calling for his removal from office. And that's why I don't think he should be taking a legalistic approach to this. I think he's playing it terribly politically. In the silence, the vacuum is being filled by speculation, and the puzzle pieces are already starting to fall into place. The Namibian angle, the use of the VIP protection unit, etc. Those puzzle pieces are all falling into place. The last thing the President wants is those puzzle pieces to fall into a full picture, and he has still not spoken on it. And I would really urge the President to come clean and to make a full disclosure to the nation.
All right, thank you very much, DA Leader John Steenhuisen. I must also add that earlier this afternoon, Dan Moyane spoke to the Justice Ministry spokesperson, Crispin Piri, who confirmed they were looking into requests from Namibia for assistance in dealing with this theft. They have not as yet found any information relating to that, but they say they are looking. All right, let's